We are officially in the home stretch for Spider-Man Brand New Day. Marvel and Sony have kept this plot under lock and key, but the trailers have already given us a massive puzzle piece: Sadie Sink's unrevealed character. The entire internet is completely convinced that she's playing a mind-controlling MCU variant of the X-Men's Jean Grey. And honestly, looking at how her character possesses people on screen, it makes a ton of sense. But Marvel loves a good rug pull, so if she's only rumored to be Jean Grey, then who is she really? I've heard some fans speculate that she can be an early host for the Spider-Queen Anna, while others have said that she can be an elder host for an entity like Shathra. Drop a comment right now with your absolute best guess on who Sadie Sink is actually playing if she turns out not to be Jean Grey. Either way, whether it's Jean or a different psychic force, her presence introduces a dangerous element to Peter Parker's life. Throughout Brand New Day, we know that Spider-Man, not Peter, is interacting with Ned and MJ, essentially recruiting his old friends as civilian assets. By the end of this movie, I'm guessing that the psychic floodgates are going to burst wide open. Whether it's Jean Grey that unlocks their minds, or repeated proximity to Spider-Man naturally unlocking the memory block itself, the floodgates will rush back, and the reaction isn't going to be a happy reunion. This is where the real emotional shrapnel from Brand New Day sets up the next phase of this trilogy, because when the floodgates open and those wiped memories finally snap back into place, it is going to cause severe emotional and psychological trauma for Peter's inner circle. And it all stems back to one massive broken promise at the end of No Way Home. Peter swore that he would find MJ and Ned. He swore that he would make them remember, but he walked away, forcing them to live a lie. And the emotional shrapnel of that choice hits the ground running the second movie 5 begins. At the beginning of this film, MJ is the first to make her approach after her memories resurface. When she confronts Peter, she isn't running into his arms or happy reunion. She is completely confused, deeply hurt, and profoundly angry. She's going to remember that yes, she did love Peter Parker, but she's now completely unsure of who she loves. And I'm not talking about a debate between Peter Parker or Spider-Man. It's whether she loves who Peter Parker was before or the person he is now. If he was able to lie to her and alter her reality once, regardless of how good his intentions were, she now has to live with the fear that he could do it to her again. It makes her wonder if she even has a choice to love him or not. That is where the ultimate confusion and the hurt comes in, and it's simply too much for her to handle. So instead of running back into his arms, MJ packs her bags and leaves New York entirely, just to get away from the chaos and clear her head. Peter is left standing completely alone, crushed by the realization that his sacrifice only caused more damage. Realizing that if MJ's memories returned, Ned's must have too. Peter suits up and swings his way over to Ned's apartment. But as he goes to launch off a brick ledge over Brooklyn, we get our very first check engine light. For a moment, his grip completely slips. His wall crawling friction cuts out and he clumsily slides a few feet down the brick before awkwardly catching himself. Shaking out his sore hand, Peter brushes it off as pure emotional exhaustion from MJ leaving, completely unaware that a slow physical power regression has officially begun. Peter finally manages to get to Ned's apartment, but when Ned opens the door, he plays completely dumb, putting up a massive defensive front. When Peter directly asks him if he remembers their past, Ned laughs it off. Yeah, dude, you came over to our house for that party and I showed you that awesome spider wall, right? Peter tries to push deeper, asking about everything before the party. Ned just looks at him like he's crazy. What are you talking about? We never met before that, right? Tragically, Ned is practically giving Peter an opportunity to come clean. However, Peter decides not to force it and leaves. But while MJ left New York completely confused on how she feels, Ned goes in a completely different, terrifying direction. He is now fully cemented in his feelings as far as betrayal and anger goes. Later on, we cut to a dark, gritty dive bar on the edge of the city. Ned is sitting at the counter, heavily intoxicated, completely drowning his sorrows, and utterly consumed by the toxic, overwhelming weight of his returned memories. He's being loud, slurring his words, and aggressively venting to a silver-haired female bartender who is just trying to wipe down some glasses. Ned is screaming out that Spider-Man is a fraud, a crook, and a traitor who treats the people closest to him like toys. Right then, two men in black from the Alchemax Corporation step out of the shadows. They take absolute advantage of his drunken state, slide into the booth next to him and tell him flat out, we can give you the power to take out the spider if that's what you really want. Now, mind you, Alchemax doesn't necessarily want to take out Spider-Man. Specifically, this is a pharmaceutical company that uses advanced equipment to develop unique gene alterating serums. And these genetic serums can do a lot for a human being, including making them very strong and very sharp. And basically, or at least for right now, they just want to test their creation against Spider-Man, seeing as how he is an ultimate opponent. But once Ned gets to their lab, the choice is taken out of his hands. He is drugged, restrained, and completely under their control. He isn't acting for himself here. This is pure mind control. Alchemax takes his buried subconscious aggression against Peter and multiplies it by 100. They suit him up in a horrifying, high-tech, orange-themed goblin armor and unleash him onto the city. Now, is Alchemax trying to build another super soldier program here? Or is this a corporate entity trying to hatch their own batch of super-powered assets? Maybe it explains why we're suddenly seeing mutants pop up in the MCU. Let me know your theories in the comments below. Now, desperate for a paycheck, Peter lands a gig as a freelance photographer at the Daily Bugle, where he finally meets Betty Brant and veteran editor Robbie Robertson. While Betty helps Peter navigate the chaotic office, Robbie takes a deep interest in Peter's photos, noticing an almost impossible knack for capturing Spider-Man mid-swing. Aside from his work at the Bugle and to keep his sanity, Peter also spends his free time running a small homework help table at F.E.A.S.T. Across the room, a group of young teenagers are huddled around a phone, actively scrolling through the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man app, developed by Ned, of course. They're fanboys that just want to see where the next local alerts are coming from. One of these so-called fanboys happens to be wearing a slightly oversized faded Spider-Man t-shirt. At this table, Peter is struggling to explain kinetic energy and angular momentum to a struggling student. Distracted by his grief over MJ and Ned, Peter makes a glaring technical error on the dry erase board, miscalculating the velocity decay of the moving object. The teenager wearing the faded Spider-Man shirt overhears it from across the room, looks up from the app, and walks over to the board. Actually, you forgot to account for the pivot radius. If you don't adjust the mass over the arc, the perpetual motion equation completely collapses. Peter stops completely, thrown off by this 12-year-old schooling him. Wow, you really know your stuff. I'm Peter. Are you here for tutoring? The kid laughs, shaking his head. I'm Miles, and no, I'm actually just here building up volunteer hours with my friends Genki and Finn. We need them for our Visions Academy applications. Right now, we're just waiting on my dad to pick us up. Peter smiles, a genuine spark of connection hitting him. Visions Academy? That's incredible. I actually wanted to go there myself when I was younger. Intrigued by Peter's math skills, Miles pushes the conversation further, asking a complex question about how mass affects the trajectory under extreme tension. Noticing Miles' t-shirt, Peter decides to use a real-world example. Think about it like Spider-Man. When he swings, he isn't just letting gravity do the work. He has to constantly adjust his grip radius to maintain momentum through the arc, converting potential energy into raw speed. Miles's eyes light up. Oh wow, I never thought about it being applied to a person before. I always just calculated objects. Peter taps the board with a grin. Anything can swing, Miles. You just have to open your mind to the possibilities. It's a beautiful, organic moment where they connect deeply, purely as two passionate men of science. However, the moment is broken when a towering yet warm presence enters the room. Officer Jeff Davis, or Morales. It really doesn't matter to me. He greets the kids, thanks Peter for keeping an eye on them, and then takes the crew home. Before leaving, Peter offers them more opportunities to get volunteer hours if they need it, to just talk to him, making that connection to him and his friends more concrete down the road. He watches them leave, finally feeling a glimmer of hope in his isolated life. Back at the Bugle, Robbie loops Peter into a massive investigative story that they were quietly building. Robbie shows Peter a map of Brooklyn, pointing out a terrifying pattern, a massive spike in unexplained missing person reports. Robbie tells Peter that he thinks that Alchemax, this new corporate giant that has been structured over the last several years, are somehow connected to it. But every time he tries to get a reporter near their clinics, this crazy new psycho in an orange cloak starts tearing up the financial district. Armed with Robbie's intel, Peter realizes that he needs to stop this so-called goblin to finally clear the board and investigate Alchemax. The final act is a breathless, high-stakes collision. Because of Peter's severe power fluctuations, his strength and reflexes have heavy glitching, turning a fight against a tech-based opponent into an absolute war of attrition. He has to use pure human grit to finally web sabotage the Hobgoblin's glider, sending them both crashing violently into the rain-slicked concrete. Peter finally gets him pinned down, raising a fist, ready to deliver that final blow. But you know me, I love paying homage. So this time, we're going to be paying homage to Spider-Man 1. That sheer force of the beatdown cracks the Hobgoblin's helmet, snapping Ned out of the chemical stupor for a fleeting, sober moment. "Stop! Peter, stop! It's me!" He pulls off that cracked mask. Peter stumbles back, his heart dropping in his stomach. "Ned? What is this? Why are you doing this?" Ned is woozy, leaning against a pipe as the drug starts to wear off, finally. But the raw emotional trauma is completely real. He looks at Peter, tears mixing with the rain, and flat out blames him. "Because of you. You chose to lie to me. You chose to take away my memories, and you chose to break your promise. I was your guy in the chair, Peter. I was always there for you, and you just discarded me. You left me behind." Ned tells him up front that he wasn't trying to come after him originally, but deep down, this was what he felt. He wanted the revenge because Peter lied, manipulated him, and chose not to come back for him. Peter too completely breaks down, the guilt suffocating him. He tells him, "I'm sorry, Ned. I'm so sorry. You're right. I'm so sorry." He promises that he will do whatever it takes to make this right. Ned just sits there completely out of it, woozy from the battle as Peter lets off of him and allows him to stand up. Now, I absolutely love Ned Leeds and his brotherhood with Peter, so I'm not gonna be the one to drop the axe on his fate here. I'm gonna leave that to you. When the smoke clears on this rooftop, how does this end? Does Peter manage to pierce through that hatred, using their lifelong history to break the Hobgoblin's hold, leading Ned to step away from the villainy? Does Ned walk away completely, refusing Peter's help, no longer wanting active revenge but permanently breaking their brotherhood and leaving New York as a fractured soul? Or do we go the classic heartbreaking route where Ned's own Alchemax tech or a tragic accident seals his fate, leaving Peter to carry the ultimate weight of his broken promise? Drop your votes in the comments below, because whatever you choose, Peter Parker is left completely isolated, structurally broken, and carrying an immense emotional weight. At this point, he has no idea that the Hobgoblin is just an Alchemax-funded distraction, and that the corporate giant has already set its sights on the neighborhood, including a young brilliant kid named Miles Morales. Smash that like button, subscribe to lock in for the next chapter, and I will see you guys in the next one.